Fire Emblem has been a long-standing RPG series since the 90s, but when Super Smash Bros. Melee first released in 2001 for the Nintendo GameCube, two unknown characters from Japan snuck their way into the roster, Marth and Roy. They were added into the game due to overwhelming demand by fans in Japan, but since the West had never played or even heard of a Fire Emblem game by that time, it left a lot of people confused as to who these two sword users were. Their inclusion in the early 2000 Smash game opened the door to several Fire Emblem game releases in the West, just 2 years after their appearance in Smash. However, Fire Emblem did exist before Smash and has changed tremendously over its 27-year lifespan. Now, when I mean what happened, I don't necessarily mean that they've become bad games, because they clearly haven't, but more what direction we've seen the series take and who exactly the games are for now. It's come a long way since its original 1990 Japanese release of Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light on the Super Famicom, to its latest original release and much shorter title, Fire Emblem Fates, a game that drastically changed the formula in the way Fire Emblem is played. I say original because Fire Emblem Echoes is more of a remake of a classic Fire Emblem title more than a new Fire Emblem game. Since then, Fire Emblem has become more than the ordinary tactical RPG, simply moving around the grid, strategizing which ways to defeat the enemy. While that in essence is still the core gameplay we all know and love, the most recent installments of the series have changed the way players see Fire Emblem as a whole. Now, before we go into what changes the series has undertaken over the years, for those of you who are unsure of what Fire Emblem is like exactly, and have seen the hordes of Fire Emblem characters in Smash but have never played any of the games, allow me to give a brief rundown of the core components of gameplay, specifically the combat. Fire Emblem is a tactical RPG, one that stood out in the crowd of the standard turn-based RPGs that were popularly released. While there are still turns for each character, the battles take place on a grid, with each character being able to move a certain amount of spaces. All characters also have a class, which affects their method of attack and movement depending on if they're on foot or on some kind of mount. Now, the way you win is by taking out each and every enemy on the board, one by one, until your team is the last one standing. The famous weapon triangle is featured in the game regarding the strengths and weaknesses of your weapons while attacking or being attacked. Some weapons are stronger against others and vice versa, so it's vital that you acknowledge which enemy is best to use what weapon on. The games are also famous for the mechanic of permadeath, where if one of your units fall in battle, that's it, they're gone forever. And this adds a hefty amount of challenge, strategy, and skill to the gameplay, as one mistake could lead to your whole team wiping, meaning that even if you do manage to defeat the enemy, you'll be left to face the next, mostly harder challenge with a significantly weaker team. The core gameplay of Fire Emblem has remained generally the same through the years, with small tweaks here and there. Fire Emblem Awakening added the option of casual mode, where even if a unit falls, they're not gone forever, and Fire Emblem Fates got rid of the weapon durability seen previously in the series, with the exception of the healing weapons. One of the most notable changes, though, to the battle system and game as a whole was the introduction of the relationship status. It was first implemented in Fire Emblem Awakening and was successful for the most part, but I think this was the aspect of the game that really made people start to turn on what Fire Emblem was becoming. As you fought, you could build characters' relationships with each other based on if they interacted in battle. The more they interacted, the stronger their relationship became, and when they hit the highest rank, they could get married, granted it was possible. Now, it's important to note that Fire Emblem is a JRPG, those notorious for their very appealing-looking female characters, and Nintendo definitely took advantage of that with this new relationship system. Thanks to the uniqueness of each character's personalities, it was very easy to build a connection with certain characters and grow attached to some more than others. So this relationship mechanic was the perfect way for players to go, wow, I am like super in love with this boy and girl character. I think I'm gonna marry them. And now this proved to be divisible for a lot of players. Many felt that this became a distraction and began to stray from what Fire Emblem should be, a pure tactical RPG. However, it wasn't necessarily the gameplay that was changing, but actually the perception of the game by others. The game was now flooded with potential quote-unquote waifus. Enter Fire Emblem Heroes, the first Fire Emblem game to ever be released on mobile devices. This game was different than the other Fire Emblem games. It kept its standard tactical RPG elements, but just dumbed it down and made it more accessible for a wider audience so it would work well on stuff like a phone or a tablet. It also featured various Fire Emblem characters spanning across its entire library of games that you could obtain using orbs to summon them. Now, orbs could be obtained by doing quests or tasks in the game, or they could be purchased with microtransactions in typical free-to-play mobile game fashion. Now, of course, these microtransactions existed to get people to buy orbs to spend on summons, and how did Nintendo ensure that people would buy these orbs to get their favorite characters? Well, with certain enticing incentives, of course. You remember Camilla, right? The lovable sister of Corrin from Fire Emblem Fates? Well, what if she was in a Easter Bunny outfit? Or how about Lucina, everyone's favorite waifu from Fire Emblem Awakening? Well, what if she was in a bunny outfit? But they're only available for a limited time for the Easter event, so make sure that you buy your orbs so you can have a 3% chance of pulling them. But that wasn't the end of it. Nintendo knew what they were doing when they were promoting this game, and they knew exactly who their fan base was. So if you thought a couple of waifu material fan favorites and some bunny outfits was bad, imagine how bad using orbs to summon literal Fire Emblem wives was. That's right, one of the events for Fire Emblem Heroes was a bride event, where you could summon female characters in wedding gowns, making them literal waifus. But we haven't even gotten to the worst of it yet, and this one is my personal favorite. The summer event, featuring swimsuit variations of some of your favorite characters, like female Robin, and Tiki, and oh yeah, there's some guys there too, but who cares about them? I mean, not when Tiki has melons. Nintendo has realized what the fans want. They don't want an interesting or gripping storyline or standout gameplay mechanics. They want to be able to build a team with their favorite Fire Emblem characters. Except with 90% less clothing. Now, I'm not judging. You do you, and buy those orbs if that's who you are, but the direction Fire Emblem Heroes has taken is evidence that those who were skeptical of where the series was going back in Awakening were right. It's begun to cater more to the relationship and female attraction aspects, and less about what made Fire Emblem great in the first place. Older Fire Emblem games showed almost no trace of this kind of thing. So, what changed? What is the reason that Fire Emblem has started to become every guy's anime girl dream instead of the hardcore tactical RPG it began as? Well, a plausible theory might be the fact that it was what was needed to save Fire Emblem. Before Awakening, the Fire Emblem games had been falling off and were beginning to lose steam. They banked everything they had on the success of Awakening, and if it didn't perform as well as it did, there's a very good chance that Fire Emblem may not have been around today. But of course it did work out very well actually, and I think that it has a lot to do with not just the slight improvements in gameplay, but the relationship system. It might have been that extra thing that Fire Emblem needed to set it apart from the rest of the crowd of RPGs, making it a real standout game for a lot of players. And a lot of players love that aspect of the game, and when Nintendo realized it, they took it and ran with it. Just maybe they ran with it a little too far. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my latest video. I had a blast making it. I always love making these videos that I just put my thoughts onto paper. So if you liked it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. But I always have a blast making these videos, even if it's a lot of work. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later.